Hi, everybody. Yay, we're back. I hope you had a great spring break. Hopefully, you are practicing your good social distancing and you didn't do anything too crazy, but you still had fun. I did a lot of baking. I'll include a photo or something of something I baked over spring break. I hope you had as good of a break as possible. We are going to resume with our reading of the Odyssey. We only have three three more episodes left. And we left off last time where Odysseus has just come back home. He's getting ready to fight off all of the suitors that are there to court his wife, but he's still disguised by Athena as the old beggar man. And so he sits down to have a conversation with his wife, Penelope, and all the while she's speaking to her husband and she doesn't even know it. And Odysseus has to just sit there and pretend he is really this old man. And he tells her that Odysseus will be home soon. And so this next episode is called The Challenge. And you may have seen this scene play out before. And I'll show you a little clip at the end of the episode once we're done watching it that may be a little bit familiar to you. The scene is called The Challenge. And we all know that Odysseus has lots of wits. He's very crafty, very smart. That's one of those epic hero qualities. But we also know that he is a great warrior. But in his old man disguise, he's not going to just straight up take on the suitors. There's a little bit more to it than that. So I'm going to share my screen with you and we will read along with The Challenge. Keep your eyes peeled here at the very beginning of this episode. There's going to be an epic simile. So remember those words that we are looking out for a simile are not just the normal ones, not just like and as for your comparisons, but the word so or just so is also another indicator of an epic simile. So The Challenge. Read along with me, please. You can have your own text open if you want, or just read along with what's on my screen, and I'll stop us every once in a while for some clarification. Challenge. Pressed by the suitors to choose a husband from among them, Penelope says she will marry whoever can string Odysseus's bow and shoot an arrow through 12 ox handle sockets. The suitors try and fail. Still in disguise, Odysseus asks for a turn. Gets it. And Odysseus took his time, turning the bow, tapping it every inch for borings that termites might have made while the master of the weapon was abroad. The suitors were now watching him, and some jested amongst themselves. A bow lover, dealer in old bows. Maybe he has one like it at home, or has an itch to make one for himself. See how he handles it, the sly old buzzer. And one disdainful suitor added, May his fortune grow an inch for every inch he bends it. So clearly they don't think that this old man is going to have much luck with Odysseus's old bow, considering they all just tried and failed at the challenge. But it is Odysseus's old bow. All right, we're on line 1370. But the man skilled in all ways of contending, satisfied by the great bow's look and heft, like a musician, like a harper, when with quiet hand upon his instrument he draws between his thumb and forefinger a sweet new string upon a peg. So effortlessly, Odysseus in one motion strung the bow, then slid his right hand down the cord and plucked it, so the taut gut vibrating hummed and sang a swallow's note. In the hushed hail, it smote the suitors, and all their faces changed, meaning they saw him string the bow so expertly that they all went from joking and making fun of him to being like, oh, shoot, maybe he knows what he's doing. In the hushed hail, it smote the suitors, and all their faces changed. Then Zeus thundered overhead, one loud crack for a sign, and Odysseus laughed within him that the son of crooked-minded Cronus had flung that omen down. He picked one ready bow from his table where it lay bare, The rest were waiting still in the quiver for the young men's turn to come. He notched it, let it rest across the hand grip, and drew the string and grooved butt of the arrow, aiming from where he sat upon the stool. Now flashed an arrow from twanging bow, clean as a whistle, through every socket ring, and grazed not one, thud with heavy brazen head beyond. So he was able to do it. He he shot the arrow clean through all of the axe handles. Then quietly Odysseus said, Telemachus, the stranger you welcomed in your hall has not disgraced you. I did not miss, neither did I take all day stringing the bow. My hand and eye are sound, not so contemptible as the young men say. The hour has come to cook their lordships' mutton, suppered by daylight, other amusements later, with song and harping that adorn a feast. He dropped his eyes and nodded, and the Prince Telemachus, true son of King Odysseus, belted his sword on, clapped hand to his spear, and with a clink and glitter of keen bronze, stood by his chair in the forefront near his father. So Odysseus has completed the challenge. The challenge was to shoot the arrow clean through these tiny targets of the axe handles and without hitting any of them. And of course, being the master bowman that he is and shooting with his own bow, he does so when none of the other suitors could. And remember, the prize for this is winning the hand in marriage of his wife, Penelope, where all these other suitors have been trying to do this for months. And finally, when they get the opportunity to win her hand in marriage, they lose to this old man. And at the end, after Odysseus has won, he brags just a little bit, and then he says, other amusements are about to happen. And Telemachus, his son, stands up, grabs all his gear, his sword, his spear, and walks up to the front of the room to stand next to the old man, to stand next to Odysseus. So that's kind of the cue for all of us, the reader, that it's about to go down. And during the challenge, we heard Zeus chime in, sends a thunderbolt down to kind of spice things up before Odysseus shoots his bow and arrow. So we know that this battle that's about to happen is gearing up. So I want to take us back towards the beginning of this episode. It was kind of a short one. And I want to talk about this epic simile that I told you to keep an eye out for. I'm going to put the page back up, and I want you to see if you can spot the epic simile. I'll put the chunk where it is up on the screen. And I want you to be able to tell me what are the two things that are being compared, and what is that comparing word, that transition word that shows us that a comparison is happening. So it's either like, as, so, or just so. So somewhere in this chunk of text that is on the screen, from the word may all the way down to the word stool, somewhere in this chunk of text, there is an epic simile. I want you to look for it, and I want you to tell me what two things are being compared. Okay, so hopefully you've seen that somewhere in this little chunk right here is the word like a bunch of times. So it's talking about Odysseus grabbing his own bow off the table. And it says, but the man skilled in all ways of contending, satisfied by the great bow's look and heft, like a musician, like a harper, when with quiet hand upon his instrument, he draws between his thumb and forefinger a sweet new string upon a peg. So effortlessly, Odysseus in one motion strung the bow. So we almost have two similes here, and I'll accept either one. We have the word like because it's describing Odysseus like a musician. So it's saying when Odysseus picks up his weapon and strings the bow, it is like when a musician or a harper strings their harp, their musical instrument. But it also has this second part of this comparison to it, where it's describing that whole motion of Odysseus stringing the bow and how he does it. So it says down here on line 1375, so effortlessly, Odysseus in one motion strung the bow, just like a musician effortlessly strings their recorded instrument. So that is our epic simile there. We have the word like, but we also have the word so in there. It's kind of a tricky one. All right, so our next episode coming up is going to be violent, to say the least. It is when the battle is going to go down. So I'll include a little clip here. Like I teased you for at the beginning, that this episode might be a little bit familiar to you. And then we'll get on with reading our next episode.